Anthony Edwards and the Timberwolves were swarmed in game one. Ant-Man knows he's got to be more aggressive here in game two. Going down 0-2 to OKC would be a major uphill battle. The newly minted MVP back in action. His teammates a big part of that and were rewarded as such. New rollies and a new focus, renewed focus as they look to get one step closer to the ultimate goal. Game two, Timberwolves Thunder coming up at 8:30 Eastern. The NBA playoffs, they have been bonkers. Highlighted most recently by the Pacers' incredible win over the Knicks last night in overtime. Let's see if they can top that in OKC. Welcome to Playoff Central Live, presented by AT&T. Nabil Kareem alongside Isiah Thomas and Steve Smith. And yes, we will get into our game, but I am still not over what we saw last night in New York. I mean, the storylines, the subplots, and what happened, that was crazy, Zeke.
It was crazy. And as I was sitting there watching the game, I was texting back and forth with, good friends of mine, Vinny and Mike Wilbon. And I kept saying to them, even in the second quarter and the third quarter, I was like, you know what? I said, Goodwill, this game is too close right now. And I felt like Indiana at any point in time, if they got just a little momentum, they can burst the dam. And the momentum burst didn't come until like the last 2 minutes. But you felt like the whole game, Indiana was right there. And it was just looking for that one little, burst in the dam. And I thought they got it. And when they got it in those last 2 minutes, Smitty, they were able to just not only, burst the dam, but they were able to just run through the Knicks. And I thought this was a very difficult loss for the Knicks.
Nabil and Isiah, I want to start off, I fell in love with the game. And I would always want to thank you for enhancing it. These two teams had me having that feeling again, the way they competed.
Yeah.
I mean, it was pure strategies, pure battling, pure test of will, gamemanship, showmanship, arrogance.
Yeah.
I want the shot. No excuses basketball. So I want to thank both teams because I watch a lot of games. I get excited. This one, Zeke, I was sitting there jumping around. I blew out my ACL just because of the way they competed and not because of the big shots.
Yeah.
It was all the little things. I fell in love with the game. Going back to the huddle, wasn't nobody pouting. Everybody was looking at the coach and looking what he was drawing up.
Yep.
Other guys not playing, they chattering. Zeke, watch this, watch that.
Yes.
So before I even get to the game, I just want to say I love that.
We will talk more about that game in just a moment. Let's focus in on Minnesota, who are looking to split with OKC tonight. Here is Chris Finch on the adjustments they need to make here in game two.
Yeah, we make more small plays consistently, whatever that might be. It might be an on-time, on-target pass. It might be a crackback on a rotation. It might be, a late shot contest, but a shot contest nonetheless. I thought Oklahoma City did a better job of making a lot more small plays than we did.
Give them credit. They do a good job of scrambling, and they put a lot of pressure on you where your passes may not be as, perfect for a good rhythm shot. But we're paid to make our shots, honestly. So we should make our open shots, any looks we get.
Yeah, you miss shots, but I don't say you should expect to miss shots, but it's the playoffs. And so it's not going to be as easy. So if you're missing shots, you got to find other ways to win.
We just are always going to assume our opponent is going to play at their best. And Minnesota's best is really good. And they didn't play their best. The past doesn't influence what happens on this night. So a team's record in the regular season doesn't predict whether or not they win tonight. That's obviously like a playoff seed that we tried to plant early. No team's going to be perfect, and it's easy to react to that after an individual game. We understand that's the case. We just want to throw our best punch every night.
Jared Greenberg is in OKC. He joins us now. So Shai Gilgeous-Alexander will receive his MVP trophy tonight. What are the details around that? And what kind of extra juice do you think that's going to give the Thunder?
Nabil, game one was basically as loud as an NBA arena could get. I just cannot wait for a few moments from now. Once the crowd files in here, it is going to be charged. I asked Shai Gilgeous-Alexander about it last night. He is incredibly excited about what this atmosphere is going to be like tonight. I just saw Commissioner Adam Silver. He will be here to present the Michael Jordan Trophy to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He will be on hand to do that. Guys, I got to say about this arena, I was having flashbacks to 2012 when the Thunder made their first run to the NBA Finals. We all introduced to the NBA's only college-like atmosphere. I don't know if it's the loudest arena in the NBA. It certainly might be, but it is the craziest, most locked-in group of fans. And tonight, it should be even more exciting. And I've got some details on how SGA plans to celebrate. He will be debuting a new colorway of the Converse Shea 001s that he's been wearing this season. It is the MVP version, but it is most valuable person dedicated to his wife, Haley. It is the pale clay color of his new Shea 001s that he's going to wear tonight. So he got emotional last night in the acceptance speech, and tonight he will wear those new colorways, Nabil, and dedicate tonight's performance and the shoe to his wife.
That is really cool right there. And again, that atmosphere you're talking about, there's no doubt about it. OKC is outstanding. Now, Minnesota's going to want to shut that down a little bit, especially early on. Anthony Edwards, he talked a lot about his approach going into game 2. What can we expect?
Yeah, Nabil, he's talked about maybe playing more off the ball, taking some more shots. It was a bit surprising that he only took 13 shots. I've been told that the messaging from people within the organization to Anthony Edwards between games 1 and game 2 is to not let the game dictate how you play. You have to throw the first punch. You, Anthony Edwards, have to set the tone by being aggressive. And Chris Finch saying a few moments ago in his pregame media availability that he's prepared. He knows that Anthony Edwards is prepared to be super aggressive, and he never takes much to recalibrate. I asked Mike Conley about Anthony Edwards' approach, and he said that Ant-Man has been angry since the end of game 1. He, in fact, was ready to play game 2 last night if he could have. And I would imagine we will see a much more aggressive Anthony Edwards taking way more than 13 shots tonight.
I know it's only game 2, but it really feels important for Minnesota here to get the split. Are there any other tactical changes or lineup changes for Minnesota tonight?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things. The first is they feel pretty confident, the Timberwolves do, that they're not going to miss 22 wide open shots. That's number one. But the big other factor here has been Julius Randle, who has been playing the best basketball of his career, including scoring 20 first-half points in game 1. Coach Finch saying he needs to do a better job of making sure that Randle is more effective or more involved in the offense throughout the game. He said, Coach Finch did, that he should have done more to run deliberate plays for him in that third quarter when Randle really went quiet. I also spoke to some people around the Thunder who believe that Rudy Gobert won't be minimized as much as he was in game 1. Now, remember, a lot of that had to do with early foul trouble. He picked up those 2 quick fouls within 90 seconds. Assuming Gobert can stay out of foul trouble tonight, the Thunder are anticipating that they're going to see a lot more of Gobert, which will make things interesting for OKC. Will they be as willing to go to that small ball lineup that was so effective in the second half? It'll be something to watch tonight. And as you said, in a pivotal game 2 of the Western Conference Finals.
All right, Jared, appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Got it.
That second half of that game, OKC in game 1, I should say. That defense. I mean, throughout the game, they were great, but they really turned it up a notch, Smitty.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about so many teams and individual players getting hot offensively, as we saw in Indiana. But to me, Zeke, they were hot defensively. We always talk about defense to touch. They were active, and I was always thought, can you make your guy uncomfortable? They had Minnesota scared. It wasn't uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. It was like when you start thinking as an offensive player where the defenders are coming from and you don't know well and you can't get a rhythm, that's when you don't have your offensive game where it's flowing. Right here, watch hands. They have been taught it's a swipe down every time. I mean, some could be fouls, but they are going to get in your space. One, they're going to body you. And then everything is touch, swipe. And then when you fall down, it's like they're piranhas. They come to get it. Yeah. And then they're turning defense into offense so quickly because 5 guys, and I mean literally 5 guys can handle the basketball and make a play with pass.
You know, watching OKC play, it reminds me of how we used to play in college at Indiana under Coach Knight. Their defense is so similar in terms of man-to-man, ball pressure, help him recover, close down the lanes. And not only that, they're able to, most teams control tempo with their offense. OKC is able to control tempo with their defense. And, you know, we look at Edwards the other night, he got 13 shots. Julius Randle got 13 shots. Minnesota now is saying, hey, we got to get our best two offensive players more shots. Well, how are you going to do that? Because if you think you're going to get more shots just by giving them the basketball and isolating against that type of defense and that type of defensive pressure, it's not going to work. You need some screen action. You need some off-screen action. We talked about Carlisle running some flares. You need a lot of old school stuff playing against this old school defense, because the way they're defending right now, if I got a tape of Indiana basketball, Bob Knight coaching and teaching, you would look at OKC and they are replicating everything that he taught, even to denying the wing pass, which in the NBA right now, they just let you make the wing pass, but they're out there denying and everything else.
Minnesota shooting just 35% in game one from the field, 29 from three. It got to be better. Got to figure something out. This guy did figure something out. Tyrese Halliburton, sticking it to the haters. This man has been impressive, building that resume in the playoffs. We're going to go back and relive that crazy game from yesterday.